Hi, we're back again, and I have a nice young lady to come and talk to us today about all of the millions of things she does. I mean, she's a celebrity because everybody knows her, and it's Gail Daley. Good morning, Dale. Yeah.
Good morning, Carol. Thank you for having me on your show today. I appreciate being able to talk to a fellow author and artist about the things that I do.
That's right. Well, it's interesting because Gail and I have known each other for a long time, but you finally find that you really don't know much about the people you think you know. So I'm going to try to see if I can find out a little bit that I don't know about Gail.
Okay.
Gail, when did you start being interested in art?
Well, let's see. I was probably 2 when my mother handed me a set of crayons and said, go keep yourself occupied while I do the laundry. I always drew things, and I always told stories, things. As a matter of fact, when I was, I don't know, we were probably 7 or 8, I scared the bejeebus out of my cousins one time telling them a story, and we all went, and then of course, when they went screaming towards the house, I followed them doing the same thing. But I always enjoyed writing and reading. I wrote all the time, and I drew all the time and painted all the time. I didn't really start doing anything professionally until I was, 40, 45.
Oh, you took your time.
Well, things get in the way. You get married, you have a child.
I know.
And and plus that, there was always my father over there saying, well, you really can't make a living doing that. So.
That's like my mother. You've got to learn to type. You've got to learn to type.
With him, it was bookkeeping. I hate math. Absolutely hate it.
I do too. Anyway, I want to hear a little bit about, let's start with your writing. You actually have books written and published, right?
Yes, I do. I actually started these sometime in my 20s. I never really finished them, but this is ultimately the story about 3 sisters and their family. And yes, it is a science fiction. It is a science fiction romance.
Good.
They have to get married because there's been a war, and part of the thing that happened in the war was that all the men in their planet either got killed or sterilized. So if they want to keep their colony alive, then the women on the planet have to find a new batch of male colonists.
That's not bad.
The heroine in this first book, A Year and a Day, is Catherine.
Okay.
And she works with an old program that they had for immigrants, and basically she adds matchmaking qualities to it. And because the war took away a lot of their resources, it also killed off a lot of other planets. They were lucky. Their planet happened to have a resource that the enemy wanted to keep intact, so they only used a bioweapon on them, but a lot of the other planets got burned off.
Wow.
But all these ex-soldiers that were out there fighting this war, they don't have a place to go home to. So she decided, well, this is where we'll get our male colonists. So she designed what they called her matchmaking program, and she basically went to the men and made a proposal to them. The planet, or her clan on the planet, and the other clans as well, would give them a new home if they would take part in what they called a hand fasting thing, which is basically it's a marriage that lasts a year and a day. That's where the title comes from. And part of that is her program. At the base of this, it's a romance. It's a love story, because her program is it seeks out people that are compatible and matches them together, and they get. And when I targeted my audience, or when I looked at my audience, these are women's stories. They're women's science fiction, and I read gobs of science fiction growing up. Most of it was done by guys that were like Robert Heinlein and the guy that wrote I, Robot, Asimov.
Oh, yeah.
and they were very science-fi oriented. And really, the audience that I looked for, the women that read science fiction, we're really not that interested in how the science happens.
That's the hard part.
Oh yeah, we're interested in more than the people that it's about.
Right.
And I actually had a really nice compliment at Clovis Art Guild's meeting the other night. An older woman who had read my book just simply because I wrote it. She told me that she hadn't expected to like it, but that it was ultimately more about family than it was about the science.
Yeah. That's a good way. Well, I'll tell you, you might be surprised because I thought that my books were strictly for women too, because it's about women in American history. But you'd be surprised that I've had so many men just loved it.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I did this cover, and I've got, as I said, it's been published. It's published on Amazon, and I did the hardcover in Amazon's little side company, Create Space. Mm-hmm. And they are wonderful to work with.
I know I did.
And you can do as many revisions as you want, and you don't have to pay for it, which my son has to do for his, but he has to pay for every word he changes practically. But anyway, I did the cover using their cover source, but I wasn't making sales, and I decided that probably I wasn't really reaching the right audience, so I started doing some studying about the things that really how to reach an audience, that your target audience for your books, how to market it. And one of the things that it told me is that you get on places like Amazon and you put in your keywords and you see what it pulls up. And you look and you compare. You have to be objective about this. You compare your cover. First thing that you compare is your cover to the cover of the books that are being read by the women that you're trying to reach, or the audience you're trying to reach.
Wow.
And I looked at who I guess you could say my writing mentors in this area would have been, and it was a writer called Jane Castle, and she does a wonderful sci-fi series, but she actually started her work in Harlequin romances. And her books, again, are less about the tech than they are about the people in the story. And the other one are J.D. Robb stories, her Lieutenant Dallas, which is a futuristic cop type thing. And I'm looking at the covers and I'm thinking, wow, my cover doesn't look anything like that. So I went to a place on the internet that makes covers. It's called Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and there are probably about 50 or 60 graphic artists there that create covers for books.
Great.
And they were inexpensive. They ranged from you could get a cover for I paid $50 a piece for mine.
Wow.
Which was great because the thing is, when you use that source, you have to be a little more involved in it than just going to somebody who designs it from word go when you don't have much input. Because the person that did mine, she wanted me to go on Shutterstock and find suitable images that fit kind of what I was looking for.
I went through dozens of those.
Yeah. So I did that, and I've been really happy with it. The first image, or the first cover, Forever and a Day, as you can see, is quite a bit different from this one. A Year and a Day is quite a bit different from this one.
But this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
You don't notice, that's just a nice scene, and then all of a sudden you look at it, and there are these eyes looking at you.
Yes. Well, the women in my books do have some psychic gifts, so that is part of where I got the eyes staring at you. But like I said, it didn't look like the way they were. The other thing that the webinar that I listened to or watched talked about was the importance of your keywords. And it said to take your keywords and put them in someplace like Amazon and see what comes up. And if what comes up is not books that are like your book, then you're not going to reach the people that you want to reach.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So I changed that too.
Oh, good.
This one, the new cover, I'm about to put the new cover on on the books. I just got all 3 of them back. I got this is about the first sister, the one that actually goes out to the other planet to find the the second book, Forever and a Day, is the third sister, who is actually the oldest, but she rules the clan. It's an inherited thing. She rules the clan, and she's had some bad experiences with men before, so she's not real sure that.
No.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's in her 30s. She's older. She's whatever, and what she actually gets, the man that she actually gets matched with is the commander of the unit that Catherine accepted.
Oh.
And he's got a niece and a foster son that he's bringing with him, because he had the niece was off school when his planet was destroyed, so she's what he's got. But as far as family, that and the boy's older. The boy actually appears as the main character in the third book, All Our Tomorrows, because he's almost an adult.
Wow.
And he gets matched with the third sister. And the third sister, there's a lot more. Is this one, the Forever and a Day, was probably easier because the hero one was closer in age to me.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a lot of responsibility and things like that, so I related better to her. Although I really liked Catherine, because Catherine was ended up matching with the second lieutenant, was who she ended up with, and they rescued some children from a placement center that was fixing to do something really nasty with them, which I'm not a graphic person, so I don't go into graphic detail about stuff like that, but they could tell what it was. And the kids are really different. But she's here, she's probably about 23, 24, and all of a sudden she's got these 5 half-grown kids that she's, that she's responsible for, and the kids are a hoot. She ends up needing a governess for them because they're actually staying at the military base where they turned all the soldiers loose, because it was cheap to stay at, and she wanted to use their military program when she put in her program for her matchmaking program, so it's easier to stay there. But the first thing the kids do is they don't have any supervision really except her, because she's busy.
Yeah. So
they get into the base's a commissary system, and every time anybody sits down in there, the system gives out farting and burping noises, and they manage to put smells in it, and it takes maintenance 2 days to figure out where it came from. And then they got into the robo cleaners that clean the base, and they started programming them to have these races, and they didn't particularly take into it, because they're children, so they didn't really take into account what happens if they're having this race coming down the hallway and there's people in that hallway. And then they got into the base soap dispensers. One of the girls had artistic tendencies, and she'd given her art set. Mm-hmm. And one of the other kids was a chemist. He was really talented that way. And they managed to put in all these dispensers this staining agent that turned anybody that used it, their hands and their face turned blue. And so it was...
How'd you think of all that stuff?
Well,
what did your kid do when he was...
Actually, my son was very good. He didn't do any of those things.
Oh, okay.
I was inspired to finish these because he finished his, and I did the artwork on this one for him because this is what he wanted. This torn fox. He told me what he wanted, and this is actually so-called shifter romances are really popular nowadays, but this isn't what this is. The werewolf in this one is actually the bad guy. The good guys are the kids, and they're magicians that they're learning how to be magicians. The whole world has had a war with that they'd call the Dragon War, and this is about what happens afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the war went in and destroyed all our technology and stuff, and they had to replace it with something, and they replaced it with magic. It's kind of an alternate universe, so it's not. But this is about kids. The boys are 12. There's twin boys are 12, and one of them is the hero. The other one is his brother that's really kind of pesky. But I was surprised. I mean, you always think your children are talented. You really do. But he he actually put all this together, and I did the, like I said, I did the cover for him that he wanted. This was, but it's a series. He's working on the second book, which is about the other twin.
Okay, you got to make me a promise. You're going to have Andrew come on and tell
I
us
will do
more
that.
about his book.
I will do that.
So this is fantastic. But listen, you're into so many things that I want to get into a couple of other things. She is also a really good artist. In fact, she did this cover. But what the best thing about Gail is that she works hard for everybody. Like the Clovis Art Guild. She just works night and day for the Clovis Art Guild, and also the Alliance of California Artists. And she does the business part. She does every part. She helps everybody out with everything. So that's why we call her, a celebrity.
I wouldn't really say I was a celebrity. It's more about helping the artists find their feet and be able to do so. So many artists, I used to hear this all the time. They would say, "Well, I'm an artist. I don't have to do that." Well, yeah, you do. If you want your art, want your art to at least pay for itself, you have to be able to buy supplies. You have to be able to keep track of what you buy, and you have to, above all, you have to know where your art is. And so many artists, Leah Adams and I, we had started this group called Artique, which was about pretty much helping artists find places that didn't cost them everything to show their work.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of, we arranged art in a lot of businesses and things like that. But I also started a newsletter called the Local Art Events Calendar. And in that newsletter, I have the schedule for every art group's meetings that's willing to give it to me.
Wow.
And if possible, we do what they are and what they do, and who's demonstrating that month or whatever. We have a schedule of who offers classes, who offers workshops, and I also do a profile, 3 profiles in it a month. One of them is writers, they have to be local. The other one is artists, and then of the groups that they work with.
Oh, good.
And it's online. It's pretty much online. It's basically because I didn't want it to become the type of newsletter that you had to pay for, because so many of us, we start art when we retire. So we've got a limited budget on what we can spend our money on. And if it's online, it doesn't cost me anything really but my time.
Yeah.
And yes, I would like to have somebody else take it over eventually.
What's where would people go in to get that?
They go to www.art-tique.org, and there's the newsletters posted there. They can download it and print it out, or they can also sign up to subscribe to it, and I send it out monthly. I have the subscription list, probably about 200 people.
That's wonderful. That's great.
And I would like to get more writers to participate in it, but writers are not like artists. Artists have to show their stuff. Writers kind of want to hide in the shadows and peek behind them and peek out.
Not this one.
Well, I'm not either, but my son is very much that way.
Really?
He didn't want me to put his photo on the back of this book.
So it isn't there.
So it isn't there. So I thought, well, they asked for it, and he said, well, I don't want it. He just doesn't want his face on there. He wants it to be about the work, which I can understand.
Yeah, that has its own legitimacy.
It does. But, I don't care. I take terrible pictures, and I know it. So whatever I put out there is not going to look super good anyway. But at my age, who cares?
Oh, that's a good thing about age, right?
I used to care when I was younger. I used to be very, very particular, and I almost never had my picture taken because I always came off looking like I'm going to fight you, and I don't. That's not me. I don't want to be that way. But no, I've been very happy with these. The Forever in a Day. As soon as I finish doing the editing on it, I will be we'll be putting it out in the same format as this with the new cover.
Great.
And this, since I have to redo the cover anyway, I went ahead and did a little bit of revision on it. This long-winded historical prologue that I had in the front, I put it in the back. It really, I mean, it adds to the story, but you really don't have to have it to read the book. So, you might as well, you could skip it and just start right with chapter 1.
Well, do you, when you go to Art Hub, do you have your books there?
Yes, they are there at Art Hub. They are also at the Fresno Water Tower. And as soon as I get the covers redone, I'm going to be approaching the Book Barn and see about getting them put in there. But I wanted to wait till I got the covers redone before I did it because,
I'm in the same process, so I understand that.
Yes.
Anyway, if you'd like to see, take a look at Gail's books or go and see her art, you can see them. Well, the one I know is the Fresno Art Hub, and that is a home now for 2 art associations, ACA and the Clovis, and it's a beautiful, beautiful gallery. It's pretty new, and it's easy to find. Anybody wants to know, Vanessa and Weldon. And it's if you missed that, you're going to be sorry. It's really great. Anyway, Gail, thank you so much for coming in today. And talk to that boy. Tell him not to be afraid to show his face.
I will do that.
Okay, honey. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.